Hello, everyone. My name is Aaron Christensen. Welcome to Horror 101 with Dr. AC, and this is Scare-A-Thon 2023, benefiting the Women's Reproductive Rights Assistance Project. Tonight, we're going to be talking about SATOR from 2019. What a movie. I'm really excited to chat about it. And to chat about it with me, I have Mandy Walsh, who's just down the street in Chicago. And then Eric Fritzius beaming in from West Virginia. Thank you both so much for coming in and discussing SATOR from 2019. Our creative genius, Jordan Graham, is the man behind this amazing piece of cinema. I'm just going to say it. This movie really knocked me out. And I'm so glad that I knew I was going to get to talk to you both tonight, because this is a movie that immediately you want to go, what? Have you seen this? Because nobody has seen this. I mean,
I've done this for so many people since I first saw it, and I just now, in the last hour and a half, watched it again.
I'm not gonna lie, I watched it twice today. I had to go back and watch it again because I was like, "Wait, what did I just watch?"
Yeah,
this is amazing.
So the basic story, such as it is that we have a character, and I think it's amazing that we don't actually learn character names for a very long time. They are just these people moving about in space. But they are one character whose name is Adam, is out in the wilderness, and he is seemingly hunting for something or searching for something at least. And we find out that, and again, it's not a very clear narrative, but we eventually kind of piece together that his mother has disappeared and he is looking for the creature or demon or entity that spirited her away. And we meet his brother, Peter, and his sister, Deborah. And then there is a kind of mystery character, Evie. But kind of the centerpiece of the movie is Nani. And that is played by June Peterson, who is Jordan Graham's mother, who is suffering from Alzheimer's. And this is one of those movies, much like Blair Witch Project or any number of these kind of independent features, where the story behind the movie is as incredible as the movie itself, but it's also a really great movie on its own. I don't think you need to know the backstory to make it a worthwhile experience, but it certainly enhances that viewing experience, especially when you go back and watch it again, which I will be doing again very soon.
And I totally did not know any of the backstory on this on first viewing. In fact, when I got to the credits and Jordan did everything, right, I was like, oh, wait, I thought I just watched something pretty darn cool.
Yeah.
That one guy did all of this. Mm-hmm. I got to know more about this, and was able to go and find interviews with him and learn about his mother as well.
Yeah, he wrote, directed, edited, composed the score, did the sound effects, and he did everything. And I was saying, except an act. That's right. He didn't act in it. It's like that's a bridge too far.
That's too much.
But I was saying backstage that this feels like such a pandemic movie, in that it's a bunch of, it's a small cast out in the woods, and then you find out that this was being first created back in 2013 and didn't get released until 2019, which still preceded the pandemic. So Mandy, you chose this movie. Eric, I know had seen it before, but Mandy, what made you choose this? What drew you to it?
I mean, I was reading all of the plot synopses of the movies that you sent out, and this one kind of grabbed my attention. I'm really drawn to family-based horror, generational type stories, and this one totally fits the bill. I mean, the only way that I can describe it, if I was to describe it to somebody, I'd be like, it's like Winter's Bone meets Hereditary / Midsommar, and think told in the style of Jack London. It's just, it's amazing. And yeah, I watched it twice today, the first time without the subtitles. And I will admit, if you're not paying attention, you're going to miss so much. so much because it's very quiet. It's such a quiet movie. I mean, the sound is amazing, but there's not a lot of dialogue. And so I was like, I need to watch this again. And I watched it with the subtitles and a couple like key things that I kind of missed in the first one, especially with the recordings of the mother.
Right.
I thought it was somebody else, and it kind of threw me. It's a great slow burn. Great slow burn.
And so, Eric, how were you drawn to it in the first place?
Oh, through this, I had not seen it prior to the assignment.
Oh, okay.
I read the description and was like, that sounds fun.
I'd come across it from like just lists of like best of horror movies from the 2000s or 2020. I haven't heard people in my circle really talking about it. It isn't something. So I was really thrilled that I knew I was going to get to talk about it with people who had just seen it as well, because it's so beautifully made. Like the production value is pretty incredible.
Did he study film? Does anybody know like what his background is? Because like it's so meticulously shot and crafted that I'm like,
the putting it together, like the film, the cinema of it is so high quality.
Mm-hmm.
He did one film prior to this, and I am blanking on the name of it, but he did have at least that credit before going into this project.
Okay.
But it was kind of, from everything I read, kind of a labor of love, in that his mother was such a part of the backstory for the movie, because she, through her life, even before the dementia, apparently believed she was receiving messages from some spirit called SATOR.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So this was something he grew up with, and it was around.
The idea of like kind of tapping into the mythology of the SATOR, but there's the spelling of it I found just intriguing. Like everything about this movie just feels kind of like mysterious and weird and wonderful. It reminded me of a couple of movies, not so much thematically, but just kind of the style. There's a movie called Soft for Digging that is almost wordless, and it takes place, it's basically one character out in the woods, and he is visited by the spirits of, maybe a child or something.
The switching of formats is really interesting. I mean, the cold open just like sucked me in. I was in it to win it from that. I was like, what is this is great. This is great. I don't know if this is a student film or what, but I'm really into it.
Yeah. I like it when I feel like I'm in the hands of somebody who knows what they're doing, even if I don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And the as you said, like it starts off with some beautiful black and white photography, but then it doesn't stay there. It becomes something else. And we have different, we have tape recordings, and we have, as you said, the mother thought she was being spoken to, like she would do this kind of like, what did she call it?
Automatic writing.
Automatic writing, yeah. And training me to be a person was another quote I wrote down. I was like, wow, that's fascinating. And it is kind of the things that come out of that altered sensibility. I can imagine that coming from a place of someone who isn't entirely their self anymore, and you're talking kind of in dream speak, where it makes sense, but only to you.
And even the dialogue is in that same vein, because I was talking to my husband about it because he didn't get to watch it with me. I was like, this movie is bonkers. But like even the dialogue between the very little dialogue that there is, there's not, because I watched it with the subtitles, they don't use a lot of pronouns. It just is sentence fragments, which like so beautifully sets up the fact that these people are used to just talking to each other and nobody else, that they're a very isolated family. But it can make it hard to track as a third person watching this, because it's like, who exactly are you talking about, and what exactly happened, and what's this, and who's that? But I mean, the second watch through, I'm just like, this is beautifully crafted. He just sets everything up really well if you're paying attention.
Well, I think it's like 13 minutes before characters actually speak. Like we actually see words coming out of we hear those recordings and things like that, but we don't actually see someone saying words until about 13 minutes into the film. And I was just like, I'm so on board, because you feel like you're in the hands of somebody who has a story they want to tell.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just kind of, it's a really impressive piece, but I think it's an important piece for filmmakers to be like, it doesn't have to be this micro budget, nonsense film. You can actually make something that's very personal and also really that communicates, I think, to other people.
My second viewing this past, I just watched this film again in the last hour and a half, having watched it for the first time like 3 or 4 weeks ago. There was so much stuff that I was able to pick up just by paying extra attention.
Yep.
But Mandy, you are right. There are things that will slip by if you are looking at your phone. If you're not 100% on board. I had read something about the movie talking about the character of Evie, who seems to be a friend of both Adam and his brother Pete. And the thing I read seemed to indicate there was much more mystery to her than that perhaps she wasn't even physically there.
Well, because they talk about her in an accident.
Yeah.
Right.
And she says, well, I'm about Pete. She goes, well, I'm glad he survived, or I'm glad he made it out.
Right.
Of this accident we were both in. And I was like, oh, and if you listen in each of her scenes, there's like an echo to her voice in one specific part of that scene, which I think indicates something otherworldly.
And so, like, there's the section where it's the recordings that Deborah's made of the birthday, Adam's birthday. And she's talking to Pete, and he says something about, well, should we take Adam to Evie up in Midland? I believe is
right. Yeah.
And then later you see the commercial for Midland before Pete leaves the house. And I'm just like, what is that? And why and how and what? And she has hair and what? There's just so many questions about her, but she's fascinating. Fascinating.
Yeah.
Like
there's an incredible sense of kind of dream logic. I love the fact that this director is, as you said, Eric, like, he requires you to pay attention, and he's not going to give you cheap jump scares. You hear noises and you see characters turn and look at closed doors, and you see characters looking down hallways, but you can't see down that hallway. And I just love the fact that he's like, and the spooky moments, the supernatural moments, I don't know how they're handled so well, where you have, bodies that float and you go, or you have like things hiding, behind people, and he doesn't call attention to it. It just, as you said, there's not even like an auditory sting to say, hey, look up at the screen because something awesome is happening. It's like, this is just happening behind you, and I'm not going to change the sound score for you. You have to actually be watching. Yeah.
I mean, it just seems like it's a ton of establishing shots, but it's really not. It's all something like, oh, that's not a bunch of sticks. That's a pyre. And just man.
Could that possibly mean 10 minutes into the movie?
Right. But then you listen to the recordings and you're like, he is spelling it all out for you. It is all there. You just don't quite know it yet.
Yeah.
In a good M. Night Shyamalan kind of way.
Yeah. I watched it on Tubi, and
I'm sorry.
Me too. It's a movie that I'm like, I'm going to need to own this, so I'm going to probably have to track down a physical copy of it. But I agree, Mandy, like, having the subtitles is kind of key, because you hear, like, sound effects being spelled out for you, and like, what is that I'm hearing? I do kind of wish I could have seen it the way you did, where I watched it cold and then watched it with the subtitles. But I was like, I feel like I'm missing stuff. And the answer is you would be missing stuff, but that's almost by design, I wonder.
Yeah. And I would also say, don't watch it during the day like I did. It's not quite the same. And if you can do surround sound, I bet it's freaking glorious.
The sound design on this movie, there is not a hinge that doesn't need WD-40 desperately. the creaks and groans. And one of the cool things I read about this is that the director took it to a professional Foley guy, a professional sound designer, just for some tips, and was expecting to be handed his butt on this. And the guy was like, you want to do this professionally?
Wow.
Because the director did all of it, and he's not a Foley artist, and he has no desire to be. But yeah,
it's fantastic. It's fantastic. And like, even to kind of switch gears a little bit, the fact that it's his mother that's in his actual mother in the film.
Yeah.
Who
Playing
has
the grandmother.
Yeah. And like, knowing that she had dementia and all of that, it didn't feel exploitative, because it so could have gone that way, right? I mean, but the conversations with her just felt very natural and very like, we're just going to let her talk, see what she has to say. Hopefully it's usable. But I was really impressed with the way that he handled her, the other actor in the scene with her handled her, and just, I was really,
that is a great point, because you're right. It doesn't feel exploitative at all. It feels very loving. It feels like a tribute to, this is what I have of my mother, and I want to do something with it. I want to share something. And I was really kind of touched by that. Also, it opens with kind of a dedication to her, so you kind of know that it's meant with the best of intentions. And for me, that goes a long way.
Yeah, absolutely.
I did not know the dementia angle for the actress before I watched this. It's only been in the last week that I've read further on that, where she supposedly did have dementia during this. I go back and forth on that, though, because I don't understand how you achieve that final shot of her and the deer person, and you might want to put up the spoiler alert thing.
Right.
And Adam doing the head turn simultaneously if she's suffering from dementia.
Yeah.
And now, I have had people with dementia in my life and know that they have good days and bad days, and maybe one day she's able to be directed, or maybe she's following a ball on a stick. I don't know.
Right. Well, and if it was filmed in 2013 and she passed in like 2017, it's said on the thing, she might have been like in an earlier stage of it. But yeah, I don't know. It was still impressive.
Just my impression of her, though, before I knew any of that backstory, before I even knew that she was his mother, was just, oh my gosh, this actress is the best.
Yeah.
100%. I was like, she's so cool. Oh my God.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like, she doesn't feel like an actor at all. In fact, this is kind of, we're all actors on this show. And I know I sometimes bristle at, well, you got somebody who, has never acted before, but it's, there's a verisimilitude that you can't replicate. And I was listening to her, and like, yes, the things that come out of her mouth feel so authentic that you couldn't have it any other way.
Yeah.
And I was so taken. Yeah. She's so fun too. She's so charming.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean,
and so sinister in that moment where she's standing at the hallway and you're like, oh, grandma. Oh, shoot.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and that's like, what is her
role in this?
Role in all of this?
Yeah.
It's so fascinating. I was kind of surprised to find out that it was filmed in California.
Yeah.
Santa Cruz.
Mom's backyard. I guess the cabin he built in her backyard. Because I was like, oh, these people, it must be Canada. It must be like, like way out in the middle of nowhere. I just assumed that like these were logging people, because there's a shot of like the tracks, which I assumed were probably like, loggers' tracks or whatever. I was like, oh no, it's just in California.
In Yosemite, right?
In Yosemite.
Yeah. That when he brings out that kind of like duck call thing, but it releases that kind of screech and you're like, what are you trying to bring in? You know, like if you're trying to bring in something that makes that noise, no thanks.
Right.
It's a deer call. So that and deer do make a noise very similar to that.
Is it a deer call? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
But
well,
it's an
just
extra special creepy deer call.
super creepy. And when Pete asks him, "You hunting deer?" and he's like, "No." Oh no. Oh, no. What are we actually hunting?
I do think it's kind of sad that this movie exists in a world where Hereditary came out the year before it, because there are so many parallels between the stories that, you know, as I not knowing any of the backstory, just watching this for the first time, I was like, oh, somebody likes some Ari Aster. And that was my impression, that this was him aping Ari Aster, and nothing could be further from the truth.
Right.
Yeah.
This precedes it by so. Well, I don't know when Ari Aster first conceived Hereditary, but certainly this is of the same, and kind of like Ari Aster, it plays by its own rules, and it's not interested in doing what you expect. It's not playing by conventional rules. I'd say I just loved this movie, and it is the kind of thing that so easily gets slipped under the radar. And again, it'd been out for 4 years, 5 years, and I had never heard of it. I just happened to be thanks to an internet search. So
thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Like, what a treat.
I hope our refusing of it invites other people to watch it. Where did you see it, Eric? Because again, I saw it on Tubi with a few interruptions.
I also saw it on Tubi, which has a almost sinister magical ability to insert 9 commercials at the worst possible point. It's like we're building up, the door is creepy. He's staring into the darkness, and here we go. Laundry commercial.
Well, I will vouch and say it is worth the $3.99 splurge rent on Apple TV Plus.
Okay, great.
You get it for like a month, and once you start watching it, you have 48 hours. But it would almost be worth a purchase. Yeah. I believe that you're going to want to watch it more than once.
Yeah, this is a keeper, and I think this is one that you're going to want to trot out for other people and be like, okay, you think you've seen it all. Here's something you haven't seen before.
Yeah.
So I loved it, and again, thanks to all of you for being my captive audience. I need to be able to have my community group with this right now.
Thank you. I mean, such a pleasure.
Thank you so much. Again, this is Scare-A-Thon 2023, and we are benefiting the Women's Reproductive Rights Assistance Project. The link to donate is below in the description, and this is a cause that's important to all of my guests and myself. So please make a donation. No amount is too small or too large for that matter. So I'm looking forward to having both of you on the show again really soon. Until next time, keep searching, keep exploring, and keep sharing the scare.